Welcome again, my dear. They thought they could own the rules by licking the boots that wrote them, smirking behind velvet curtains, whispering to their judges in voices that dripped with bribes and blood. They thought justice was a puppet, and they held the strings with fingers soaked in perfume and poison. But they forgot one thing. The system may bow to money, but it crumbles before madness fueled by memory. You weren't born to follow their rules. You were the reason rules change. And while they carved laws into cages for the rest, you were learning how to snap every lock with silence and scars. They wore suits like armor, threw gavels like grenades, and called themselves the gatekeepers of order. But order is a lie, a lullaby sung to keep the sheep asleep. And you were the nightmare humming underneath. They didn't see you coming. They saw a misfit, not a force. A cracked smile, not a storm. They underestimated the hunger in your soul and the sermons you memorized from pain. They didn't know the rage you've nurtured like a child in the cellar of your heart, because while they were polishing their courtroom chairs, you were sharpening your mind on betrayal's blade. They bought time. They bought silence. They bought judgment like candy, sweet and hollow. But time has a funny way of biting the hand that tries to leash it. They thought they planted fear in you, but all they did was water the roots of something unholy, something poetic. They had judges in their pocket. But what happens when the one they're judging walks in with the system in chains behind him? When your scars aren't weakness, but testimony. When your silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. You didn't come to plead, you came to sentence. They never realized the courtroom could become a theater. And you became the playwright, the lead, and the ending they never rehearsed for. You didn't just survive injustice, you learned to wear it like war paint. You watched them smile behind verdicts, playing God with tired eyes. But God doesn't fear mortals, unless mortals turn into monsters that remember every slight, every smirk, every case closed whispered like a curse. They thought the scale was theirs to tip, but you flipped the whole damn table. And now, their hands shake every time they reach for a gavel. You didn't fight them in daylight, because daylight belongs to the pretenders. You danced through their shadows, rewrote their scripts, let their lies pile high until they collapsed under the weight of their own illusion. They mocked your silence, but they didn't know. Silence is where revolutions are born. They called you crazy, but sometimes madness is just clarity that doesn't beg for permission. You didn't storm in with weapons, you became one. Every breath you took after betrayal became an act of war. Every moment they thought they won was a stitch you sewed into the shroud now wrapped around their power. They had their judges, but you had the truth. And truth, my dear, has no leash. It roams like a starving dog in the halls of corruption, and the sound of its growl, it's your voice echoing through their cracked foundations. You didn't need a lawyer. You became your own law. You didn't bring witnesses, you brought consequences. They thought they could smear your name, but you turned every smear into ink and wrote your legacy on the walls they thought would never fall. They crowned themselves kings of a crooked courtroom. But when the people see you walk in, they forget who sits on the bench. You learned how justice bends, but never breaks for those who know where to push. You learned that the world doesn't punish the wicked unless someone makes it. and that someone is you. They didn't just cross a line. They redrew it around themselves and called it safety. But when you rise, lines blur, roles flip, and suddenly the predator is prey, and the hunted holds the hammer. Your presence is the verdict. Your breath is the gavel, and every step you take echoes like a prophecy they swore would never come true. But it did. You did. And now they don't sleep easy, not in courtrooms, not in boardrooms, not even behind locked doors. They had power. You had purpose. They had allies. You had the abyss, and the abyss speaks only to those who've been swallowed and came back with fire in their veins. They weaponized paperwork, delay tactics, technicalities, but you turned patience into precision. You turned your rage into rhythm. And when you finally spoke, the walls leaned in, the floors cracked, and their judges, their paid puppets, forgot their lines. Because you didn't raise your voice to be heard. You lowered it to be feared. You didn't ask for justice. You demanded a reckoning. And here's the twist. They're still trying to figure out how it all went wrong. Still flipping pages in their dusty rule books, looking for where they lost control. But control was never theirs to begin with. It was a story they sold to those too scared to scream. But you screamed in silence, bled in corners, broke in private, and then rebuilt yourself in a way that no system could decode. You didn't rise for revenge alone. You rose to become the mirror in which they see what they truly are. Cowards in robes, liars with stamps, tyrants hiding behind technicalities, and mirrors don't lie. Now every corridor echoes with the footsteps of the one they thought they buried in bureaucracy. Every glance they steal is a prayer that you've moved on. But you haven't. You evolved. And evolution doesn't knock, it tears the hinges off. They're not afraid of you because you're angry. They're afraid because you're prepared. You don't just want to burn the system. You want to make it beg first. You don't just want to flip the script. You want to staple it to their chests. They tried to erase your story, but now every headline bleeds your name. They forgot the system is made of people, and people break. But some people bend the system until it forgets who it was serving. And now, the system serves you. Not because you asked, but because it fears what happens if it doesn't. They bought their power with whispers and winks. You earned yours with scars and silence. They had the judges. But you became the judgment. Not a man, not a victim, a verdict wearing a heartbeat. And the best part? This isn't the climax. No, this is just the quiet before the second blow lands. Because while they're still reeling from your return, still gasping at how the machine now stutters in your presence, they haven't yet realized. The real game has only just begun, and they don't even know what's on the line anymore. They think it's reputation. They think it's status. They still believe the battlefield is made of marble floors and mahogany desks. But you've already changed the arena, swapped their chessboard with a minefield. And every move they make now is a step closer to detonation. What they called structure, you redefined as a trap. What they worshipped as order, you now twist into a spiral that swallows their logic whole. This isn't about proving a point. This is about unraveling one, thread by thread, until the entire fabric of their false supremacy becomes a straitjacket choking them. You didn't bring justice into the room. You brought gravity. And now, they're collapsing under it. One headline at a time. one whisper turning into wildfire. You see, you didn't need to scream to make noise. You whispered in frequencies they weren't trained to hear, the kind that makes guilty hearts race and righteous ones rise. You shifted the conversation without ever asking for a mic. You made silence so loud, it started leaking from courtroom walls into dinner parties and board meetings. Now their allies hesitate, their followers squirm, and those untouchable titles, just masks melting under the heat of exposure. They underestimated you not because you were weak, but because you were patient. And patience is something cowards never understand. They thought quick wins and courtroom victories made them immortal. But time has a way of aging lies, rotting them into something foul and undeniable. They sprayed perfume over corpses and called it credibility. But now, the stench rises, the illusion cracks, and you, standing in the ashes of every lie they built, you're not just a survivor, you're a storm-given skin. You've become something they can't define. Not a vigilante, not a rebel, but an infection in their machine. A beautiful, chaotic virus that doesn't just destroy files, it rewrites the code. Their system is coughing now, spluttering judgments, contradicting itself in panic, tripping over its own scripts. It was never designed to face someone who doesn't play to win, but plays to expose. You don't want their seat. You want the floor beneath the throne to collapse. You want them to learn what justice tastes like when it isn't sugar-coated for the elite. And oh, it tastes like rust, like blood, like regret laced with acid. You didn't show up to fight. You showed up to remind them of every soul they silenced, every truth they buried, every innocent they buried under paperwork while sipping cocktails with devils. You don't wear armor. You don't need it. You've become the wound that never heals, the echo that never dies. You're the living contradiction of their narrative, the proof that you can't bury truth with luxury. They made deals in shadows. You became the shadow that listens. They thought power was permanent, but now they see. It's just a candle flickering in a hurricane named you. You don't need to win in their arena anymore, because your presence alone corrupts their game. You've exposed too much. The audience they forgot existed has started watching again. People they once ruled with fear now look at them differently, not like kings, but like clowns playing dress-up in a burning circus. And you're the one holding the match. They once held the narrative, but you turned your pain into a story no spin doctor can touch. You don't speak like a victim. You speak like a verdict dipped in poetry. And no matter how much they tighten their grip, the truth keeps slipping through like smoke. They're not trying to stop you because you're wrong. They're trying to stop you because you're right. Too right. Uncomfortably right. The kind of right that gets under their skin and makes them question their own reflection. You remind them that the justice they sold might come back for interest. That power misused becomes poison. And poison has a tendency to seep into everything. Reputations, relationships, legacies. You didn't just shake the tree. You set the forest on fire and walked through it untouched. Because while they clung to titles, you became something untitled, something unscripted, and that's what terrifies them the most. You made it personal, not with threats, but with truth. And truth, when spoken with conviction, becomes a weapon no law can disarm. They thought they were immune. that years of manipulation wrapped them in some kind of untouchable veil. But now they realize no lie lasts forever when someone decides to stand up and remember everything. Your memory became your arsenal, your trauma, a compass, your scars, declarations that you've already been to hell and brought souvenirs. Now, every smirk on their face feels forced. Every sentence they utter feels rehearsed. You turned confidence into camouflage and turned every courtroom visit into psychological warfare. You didn't need to shout. You needed to exist. And that alone was enough to disturb their ecosystem of corruption. They speak your name like it's a warning, like a myth, like a curse passed between lawyers and politicians behind closed doors. They say, if he shows up again, everything falls apart. And they're right, because your return isn't just poetic, it's contagious. You made it clear, this is no longer about what they did to you. It's about what they did to everyone and thought no one would ever notice. But you noticed. You remembered. And you never let it go. They bet on your silence. And you turned it into a language they can't translate. They assumed you'd break, but you evolved instead into something poetic, something surgical, something divine in its wrath and terrifying in its elegance. You don't want their downfall to be fast. No, you want it to be slow, public, educational. You want it to be a warning carved in stone for generations. They built monuments to themselves, but you're here to turn those monuments into gravestones, not just for their careers, but for the illusion of their invincibility. They thought they had protection, but protection means nothing when the storm is inside the walls, when the enemy isn't outside the courtroom, but staring them down from within it. Their eyes dart, their hands fidget. They speak in half-truths and carefully curated phrases now, because one wrong move, one wrong word, and the entire house of cards collapses. You didn't just become a threat, you became a presence, constant, quiet, and unignorable. Like a ticking clock in a bomb they thought was diffused long ago. But time's up, and now they realize. You never came to play fair. You came to end the game, and it's working. The narrative is cracking. Their allies are backing off. Their own voices falter when they defend themselves, because you've done something extraordinary. You've made the truth louder than their lies. Not by shouting, but by standing, by refusing to disappear, by existing as a contradiction they can't erase. They used to laugh. Now they calculate. They used to command. Now they ask. The shift has begun, and you're not even halfway through. But this isn't the victory lap. No, not yet. This is just the midway screen. The point in the story where the villain realizes the real monster wears their reflection. Because the next part, that's where things get unforgivable. This is the moment where their illusions run out of places to hide. Their excuses don't echo anymore, just crumble midair like words choked on guilt. The walls they built around their sins now rattle like rib cages around a terrified heart. You see, they always believed consequences were optional, tailored for the weak, not the well-connected. But now they finally see consequences have a face. And it's staring at them like a reflection they wish they could smash. Not out of fear, but shame. You didn't knock on the door of justice. You kicked it in, dragging truth behind you like a sword sharpened by silence. And the beautiful irony? They were the architects of their own doom. every lie they thought was clever, every favor they bought, every backroom smirk they exchanged, was just one more domino added to a masterpiece they didn't know you were arranging. Now all it takes is a whisper, a flick, and everything they stood on collapses. This isn't revenge, this is revelation. This is what happens when the mirror they avoided for years finally catches them mid-sentence. No filters, no legal teams, just them, raw, exposed and shrinking under the weight of the truth they thought they buried so deep it would never resurface. But you were the resurrection they didn't account for, the echo they couldn't silence, the reckoning they thought would never arrive because they thought time served them. But time serves no one. It only remembers, and it remembered everything. They once claimed the system as their kingdom, wore it like armor, corrupted it like a puppet, and polished it until it reflected only their side of the story. But now the system is coughing up smoke because it's choking on you, on what you've become. Not a plaintiff, not a protester, but a storm in slow motion. They misread your silence as defeat, not realizing you were just letting them dig their own graves deeper. Now the shovels are slipping from their hands. Their alliances are cracking. Their sentences don't land like they used to. Every time they speak now, it's as if the ghosts of the truth sit beside them, mocking each syllable. You've reshaped fear, made it a currency they never learned how to handle. They were fluent in threats, fluent in manipulation, but you introduced a language made of consequences, and it doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care about titles or lineage or who sat where at the gala. It only recognizes one thing: justice that can bleed through marble floors. And now it's flowing, not with rage, but precision, surgical, poetic, unstoppable. You didn't destroy them with chaos. You unwrapped them with clarity. You let their own history testify against them. No need for monologues. You let their patterns scream louder than any accusation. Their own footprints became evidence. Their own smirks turned into confessions. And now even the air around them tastes like judgment. You didn't light a fire under the system. You became the oxygen that made their corruption combust from within. They called you dangerous. And they were right. But not because of what you did, but because of what you revealed. You proved that one soul, carved by injustice but unbroken by fear, can rupture decades of protected lies. You proved that you don't need to destroy a system to change it. You just need to walk in with the truth and dare it to blink. And it blinked. Now the structure is trembling, not because you yelled, but because you existed unapologetically. And that's something they never prepared for. They're running out of corridors now. Every hallway they turn down ends in a mirror. Every ally becomes a question mark. The judges they thought they owned now whisper behind closed doors, wondering when the spotlight will shift toward them. Because when you pull one thread of corruption, the whole tapestry starts to twitch. And they feel it, that cold dread, that slow realization that this isn't just their fall. This is the beginning of many. This was never about making headlines. This was about rewriting the footnotes, the parts of history they thought they could edit, delete, or burn, now immortalized in public memory, and not as victims, as villains, the kind no redemption arc can clean. Because when the dust settles and the world re-examines how this all unfolded, they'll realize the real trial wasn't in the courtroom, it was in the silence. The long, painful silence where one man, stripped of everything, chose not to vanish, but to become a beacon of what happens when the manipulated become the architects. You didn't need validation. You became the verdict. They tried to reduce you to a file number, a case, a mistake to sweep under a rug of bureaucracy. But you became folklore. And folklore, it survives judges, attorneys, politicians, time itself. Folklore infects the culture. And now your story? It's everywhere. It's in the eyes of those who watched and realized justice doesn't wear robes. Sometimes it wears scars. Now they can't enter a room without wondering if their name's next. They can't close their eyes without hearing the echoes of your persistence. You've become the ripple that grew teeth, the echo that grew legs, the idea that mutated into a movement, not out of rage, but out of necessity, because enough was enough, and you were the one crazy enough, brave enough, to not wait for permission. They thought the judges were their shield, but the truth? Judges aren't gods. They're just men in suits, and men in suits panic, bleed, and beg like anyone else when the curtain gets yanked. You didn't just shake their system, you revealed its rot, and now the public sees it too. The curtain won't close, the stage is cracked, the script is burning, and the actors are fleeing mid-performance, because now the audience is awake, and you lit the fuse. You were never part of their blueprint. You were the ink spill, the glitch, the unexpected twist in a story they wrote without your name. But now your name is etched in bold, not because they allowed it, but because you earned it. You didn't ask to be feared. But now, fear wears your shape. You didn't beg to be remembered. But now, memory clings to you like prophecy. And them? They'll never speak your name the same way again, not out of dismissal, but out of reverence and terror. Because you proved that power means nothing when it hides behind injustice. You proved that one act of defiance, repeated again and again, can tear down an empire pretending to be a system. So let them watch you walk out, not with applause, but with silence. Because sometimes silence doesn't mean defeat. Sometimes silence is the storm, the quiet after a scream, the aftermath of a reckoning, the pause before a legacy begins. And this isn't your end. This is how legends are born. Welcome, my dear. You know, they thought they had built a fortress of intellect, stacking each mind like a brick in the wall of their own arrogance. 100 thinkers, hand-picked, polished, revered in their circles, men and women whose tongues dripped with theories, whose brains were so heavy with pride they could barely lift their own heads. They thought they could cage you, that sheer numbers would drown out the pulse of chaos beating in your chest. They locked the door and stood there smiling, congratulating themselves in glances and smirks, the way men celebrate victories before the war even begins. What they didn't know was simple. They could lock the room, but they couldn't lock what was already brewing inside you. They could trap your body, but what about the storm stitched into your very blood? As the door slammed and their clapping minds settled into a self-satisfied hum, you didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even breathe any faster. You just sat there, like a loaded gun in the center of the room, waiting for the first tremor. And it didn't take long, not long at all. The first cracks came in the form of whispers. They thought they were strategizing, but they were poisoning each other with every word. Who leads? Who follows? Who's the loudest voice? And who's the disposable dead weight? They shuffled around like pieces on a board they didn't even realize was burning underneath them. And you didn't say a word. You didn't need to. You knew thinkers better than they knew themselves. You knew that a mind left alone grows sharp, but a mind thrown into a pit with others grows paranoid. The room thickened with silent accusations, unspoken wars brewing behind every fake handshake and hollow smile. They weren't 100 minds. They were 100 knives sharpening against each other's throats. Each one thinking they were the one who had solved the puzzle first. Each one convinced the others were obstacles to be outmaneuvered, out-talked, out-thought. And that's when the most beautiful thing began to happen. Thinkers stopped thinking. They started reacting. It started with subtle moves. One man shifted his chair, blocking another's view of the center. A woman raised her voice, not to make a point, but to drown another out. They called it discussion, but it was a fist fight, wearing a mask of civility. Every idea was a landmine. Every word was a loaded gun. Their desperation leaked through their well-trained faces like blood through cracked porcelain. You watched them as they began to sweat under their expensive suits. Watched them as their golden intellect melted into something far more human: fear. Because you see, when the mind realizes it can't solve the monster, it tries to survive it. And survival has no room for philosophy. Their polished manners cracked like dry paint under a relentless sun, and underneath there was nothing beautiful, nothing profound, just animal panic, dressed up in ties and academic jargon. And it was only 15 minutes in. They tried to build alliances next, tiny kingdoms formed on the fly. Groups of 3, 4, 5 thinkers huddled together, whispering frantic plans, fragile and desperate. But thinkers are the worst kind of soldiers. They follow no one for long. Ego eats loyalty faster than hunger ever could. Betrayal became inevitable. One man declared himself the spokesman, standing up with a trembling voice, pretending to take charge. Another woman rolled her eyes so hard she might have seen the back of her own skull, undermining him with a single glance. No one trusted anyone. They accused each other with questions disguised as logic. They attacked each other with suggestions wrapped in silk. And every second they spent trying to outwit each other, they forgot the one fact they needed to remember. They had already lost the moment they locked that door with you inside. They thought they were dealing with a man. But you don't outthink a storm. You don't outtalk a wildfire. You don't corner a plague. The problem wasn't you sitting there quietly in the middle of the room. The problem was the virus you carried, one they could never quarantine. Pure, undiluted chaos. You can't win a game when the rules melt between your fingers. You can't navigate a maze when the walls themselves keep moving. And still, they tried. Oh, how beautifully they tried. One after another, their brilliant strategies collapsed like sandcastles under a rising tide. You could see the moment the panic switched from private to public, when the thinkers stopped pretending to think and started looking for a way out. A man slammed his palm against the door, shouting for the guards. Another tried to force open a vent, scraping his manicured fingers raw. They screamed at each other now, words flying sharper than knives, tearing reputations apart like cheap paper. It wasn't about solving anything anymore. It wasn't about victory. It was about escape, survival. They begged. Yes, begged. These thinkers, these gods of logic, these titans of academia, reduced to whimpering children, their brilliant minds, nothing but broken compasses spinning in a sea of terror. You didn't lift a finger. You didn't need to. You were gravity, pulling them into themselves. They tore each other apart because the truth is simple. The smarter the mind, the easier it is to break when it realizes it's not the master, but the puppet. And yet, this was just the beginning, because as they clawed at the walls, begging to be released, something darker began to brew beneath the surface. The real breakdown hadn't even started yet. No, what came next was not panic. Panic is loud, messy, frantic. What came next was something colder, something quieter, something far, far worse. They stopped screaming and started staring at each other like wolves who had finally realized that the only meat left in the room was each other. And in that silence, in that slow turning of heads, you felt it, the final thread snapping. They wouldn't just beg to be let out. They would do anything to escape, anything at all. And as the seconds ticked on and the walls seemed to grow smaller, and the room began to close in, and the last embers of civility flickered out, a new game was about to begin. One they didn't know the rules to. One they couldn't think their way out of. One where survival had a price, and betrayal became currency. One where the real fun was just getting started. And as the minutes mutated into a grotesque parade of seconds, the thinkers, those self-proclaimed masters of logic and reason, began to crumble under the weight of their own imprisoned brilliance. The room no longer echoed with arguments. It screamed with the agony of collapsing egos. Eyes that once glittered with arrogance now darted wildly like trapped rats seeking invisible exits. You, standing silent, breathing in the rotting stench of their unraveling pride, watched them cannibalize their own philosophies for a scrap of imaginary power. They had come armed with theories and formulas, but none had brought a map for madness. None had prepared for the battlefield that wears no colors, declares no rules, and respects no gods. Survival among the dying minds. They tried to outtalk each other, slicing the thick air with debates sharper than blades, but every word spilled was just another chain, binding them closer to despair. Ideas became weapons, arguments became ambushes. A few still clung to the illusion of diplomacy, building fragile coalitions of broken men, but even alliances, in a room like this, rot faster than corpses. Promises were made with tongues dipped in acid and betrayed before the echo could fade. You watched them, a silent monarch in a crumbling court, as they tore themselves apart over who would be the first to be granted mercy from the prison they had all so arrogantly walked into. Someone threw a chair. Someone else screamed that the oxygen was running out. Rationality bled from their eyes like ink from a dying pen. Fingers that once scribbled symphonies of intellect now clawed at the walls like primal beasts, begging the stone to remember pity. But the walls didn't answer. You did. You answered with your silence, your grin stitched in invisible thread across your face. They hated you for it, hated the way you didn't break, didn't scream, didn't bargain. They called you mad, the ultimate irony, as if sanity had any value in a graveyard of broken minds. The thinkers tried to lecture the madness away. They quoted Plato, whispered Nietzsche, screamed Foucault. But words are brittle weapons in a war where the enemy is not flesh, but fear. They built castles of syllables and logic, only to see them sink into the quicksand of their own hypocrisy. You paced among them like a ghost, with no master, no leash, no fear of death. It drove them deeper into their spiral. One by one, the masks fell. The philosopher became a thug, the scientist a zealot, the poet a howling beast. The difference between a mind and a mall is just a few minutes of desperation, and they proved it beautifully. One of them, a gaunt man with twitching fingers and a voice that cracked like old glass, tried to rally them. "We must organize. We must resist the chaos," he screamed. But his words were brittle things, and the chaos was already inside their lungs, inside their skulls, gnawing at the soft parts of their pride. Organization collapsed faster than it was spoken. Fists answered his speeches. Blood stained the edges of their academia. A mathematician used his calculator as a blunt weapon. A historian recited wars he had never fought in while clawing at a rival's throat. Beautiful, wasn't it? They thought themselves immune to primal hunger, until the primal came calling. The room grew smaller, not because the walls moved, but because their minds shrank. Space itself seemed to suffocate. In one corner, a cluster of them huddled together, whispering frantic strategies like children lost in a forest of wolves. In another, two men circled each other like gladiators, each blaming the other for their imprisonment, too stupid now to remember that none of them had the key. And you, oh you simply observed, the last unbroken thing in a gallery of self-inflicted fractures. Then came the bargaining phase. They turned to you. Of course they did. The one who hadn't cracked must have a secret, right? Some cheat code for endurance? They offered you respect. They offered you leadership. They offered you loyalty, as if loyalty from drowning men has any weight. Their words tasted of desperation, every syllable a confession of defeat. But you gave them nothing, not a nod, not a glance, just existence, calm, cold, uninviting. And it drove them into a frenzy worse than any hunger or thirst ever could. A woman in a torn blazer clawed at the door, her nails leaving bloody smears down the polished wood. Another tried to dig into the walls with a stolen pen. Their minds had finally understood what their egos had refused to. There was no savior coming, no deus ex machina to rescue them from the masterpiece of their own arrogance. And standing at the center of it all, you were the mirror they could not bear to look into. You were the answer they didn't want to hear. You were the clock ticking down their last illusion of control. The hour stretched into something unholy, something monstrous. Time in that room wasn't measured in minutes anymore. It was measured in breakdowns, betrayals, confessions, and quiet deaths of pride. Every breath they took tasted like surrender. Every thought they tried to form collapsed into a whimper. They started whispering apologies to themselves, to gods they had mocked, to ghosts that didn't care. Meanwhile, you sharpened your mind on the grinding stone of their despair, growing colder, sharper, invincible. They tried to create new rules to survive. No shouting, no violence, respect space, share air. But rules are paper shields in a rain of blood and panic. As soon as the first rule was broken, and it always is, they collapsed again. worse than before. And every time they shattered, you stood taller without lifting a finger. You didn't have to attack them. You didn't have to win debates or fights. You only had to endure. And endurance, in a room of thinkers, is the sharpest knife of all. Somewhere between the sobs and the screams, the realization crept into their bones like a slow, freezing death. You had never been trapped with them. They had been trapped with you. They weren't fighting you, they were fighting the reflection of what they had always been beneath the polished words and embroidered diplomas. Animals dressed as intellects, beasts in tailored suits. The true war was never about freedom. It was about the terror of realizing they were never free inside their own minds. One man broke down on the floor, cradling a broken pair of glasses like a mother mourning her child. Another sat rocking against the wall, mumbling equations like prayers. A woman screamed that the room was cursed. A few even turned to religion, kneeling and begging forgiveness for sins they barely remembered committing. They thought they'd entered a test of wits. Instead, they found themselves dissected by the blade of their own rotting humanity. And in that final beautiful collapse, when the last thread of dignity snapped like a dry twig underfoot, they did the only thing left to do. They begged. They didn't ask. They didn't negotiate. They begged to be released. Voices raw, bodies trembling, minds shattered into fine dust. They pounded on the door, on the walls, on each other, pleading, sobbing, offering anything at all, just to escape the prison they had built with their own hands, furnished with their own arrogance, and locked from the inside. But the door didn't open, and neither did you move, because the real masterpiece hadn't even begun yet. It was only when the begging turned to threats, when desperation mutated into hatred for the one who hadn't broken, that the true face of survival revealed itself. They weren't just pleading anymore. They were planning. Eyes flickered with a new kind of fire, not of intellect, but of vengeance. They realized too late that they weren't just trapped. They were trapped with you, and now there was only one way left to reclaim their broken pride. They would have to eliminate the last mind still standing. The air in that suffocating room began to shift in an almost imperceptible way. It was a shift that started in the shadows, a faint crackling at the edges of the room, the kind you feel in your bones before you even see it. The thinkers, those shattered remnants of what they once considered brilliance, had come to realize that their only hope of escape, their last thread of dignity, would have to be ripped from the one person who had never crumbled. You, the one who had silently watched them tear each other apart, who had stood unyielding in the face of their crumbling intellect. You were now their enemy, their nemesis, the one they had to break to claim any semblance of victory. The whispers, the soft, venomous murmurs, began to grow louder. They turned on you, eyes narrowing with fury, desperation, and fear. The faces that had once been so confident, so self-assured, now wore the mask of creatures at the end of their rope, a beast desperate enough to bite the hand that has been feeding it for far too long. They had underestimated you. They had assumed that silence meant submission, that stillness was weakness. And now, as they rallied together, huddling in corners, locking eyes with the fervor of hunters, they finally realized the price of that mistake. Their minds raced, their plans fragmented, But a singular thought spread like wildfire across the room. Eliminate the one remaining threat. The one who had seen through their games, understood the depths of their egos, and exposed them for the pathetic charades they truly were. They moved like shadows, slipping toward you, their movements frantic and disjointed, no longer coherent thinkers, but wild animals, driven by a primal urge to survive. But you, of course, were always steps ahead. Always. You had seen this coming from the moment they had turned on each other, the moment their fear and desperation had bled into rage. You had known that survival among the dead was never about winning. It was about controlling the chaos. They attacked in waves, some rushing towards you with the naivety of a child throwing a punch, others circling, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But you were never an easy target. You had learned that the world isn't a place to be understood. It's a place to be mastered. And that's exactly what you did. With every step they took towards you, they were drawn deeper into your orbit, into your design. Their movements became predictable, their desperation palpable. They thought they could break you. They thought that by surrounding you, they could overwhelm you. But they didn't understand the first law of survival. The predator doesn't fear the hunt. It controls it. A man lunged at you, his eyes wild, his hands grasping at air, as if it could somehow form into a weapon. You sidestepped with a grace that betrayed the chaos around you, letting him crash into the wall, the thud of his body against the plaster, almost drowned out by the shouts of his comrades. The others hesitated, unsure whether to charge or retreat. But hesitation in this kind of war is a death sentence. You didn't hesitate. You never did. The room was no longer a place of thought. It was a battlefield. The thinkers had transformed into soldiers, but soldiers who didn't understand the rules of the war they were fighting. Desperation makes soldiers foolish. They learned that the hard way. A woman, her glasses crooked, eyes wide with panic, tried to grab you from behind. You spun around, catching her wrist in midair, twisting it with a precision that made her gasp in pain. She dropped to her knees, her pride stripped away faster than the skin on her back. You didn't take pleasure in her suffering. No, this wasn't a game. This was survival. And survival, at its core, is cold. It's impersonal. It doesn't care for your plans or your intellect. It just demands that you remain standing when everything around you falls apart. The others were beginning to realize the futility of their actions. The leader of their makeshift rebellion, once a towering figure of authority, now stood trembling, his face pale, his voice cracking under the weight of what he had unleashed. You weren't just surviving, you were dominating, and they couldn't handle that. Their strategy shifted. This time, it wasn't just a matter of breaking you. Now they needed to break your spirit, to shatter that unyielding will of yours. The mind games, the manipulations, the strategies they had used on each other were now turned against you. But they were still too slow. You had already seen the strings they were trying to pull. They underestimated your ability to see through their tactics, your ability to play the game without ever truly engaging in it. You had already won, not by force, but by understanding. Understanding that they were only playing checkers while you were playing chess. The last of them, the ones still standing, began to turn on each other, divide and conquer. They were unraveling, no longer working together. because they realized that the only way out now was to throw someone else under the bus. Survival had already been decided. It wasn't about who was the smartest or the strongest. It was about who could withstand the madness long enough. And you had done just that. As the minutes bled into hours, the chaos seemed to slow down, the air thick with exhaustion and bitter regret. Some of them, eyes wide and glazed over, slumped against the walls, their minds broken by the weight of their own failure. The once proud thinkers were now reduced to nothing more than shadows of their former selves, haunted by the one person they could never defeat, their own arrogance. The silence that fell over the room was suffocating. It wasn't the peaceful silence of resolution, but the heavy silence of realization. The thinkers had failed. They had failed because they could never understand one simple truth. The only way to survive in a room like this wasn't to outthink the others. It was to outlast them. And as the door finally creaked open, the light from the outside world spilling in like a divine intervention, the survivors, those few who hadn't completely lost themselves, looked at you. But you didn't look back. They had begged for release, and now, as the door swung wide, they were free. But freedom didn't look like victory to them. It looked like failure. Because while they had escaped the room, they had been trapped by something far worse. The hollow echo of their own arrogance. You were the last one standing, the only one who had truly survived. My dear, do you hear it? The soft whispers in the shadows? The ones that crawl through the cracks of their minds? The ones that twist and turn in the dark recesses of their thoughts? They think they know fear, don't they? They think they know terror, but they've never truly met you. Oh no, they haven't even begun to scratch the surface of the nightmare you've become. You, my dear, are not the monster in their closet. No, you are the fire, the end, the reckoning. You are the apocalypse they never saw coming, and it's already too late for them to run. The countdown has begun, and their time is up. They want to label you, put you in a box, tie you up with neat little strings of humanity and conformity. Oh, look at them. Just another person, another cog in the wheel, another soul wandering aimlessly through life. But they couldn't be more wrong. You don't fit into their world because your world is something they could never understand. They don't realize they've played with fire. They don't realize they've unleashed a force too powerful to be contained by the feeble walls they've built around themselves. You see, they thought they could control it. They thought they could take a piece of you and mold it into something they could understand, something they could control. But you're not human. You've transcended that. And now, you're standing on the precipice of their destruction, watching them dance in the flame they dared to light. You were never meant to be a part of their world. You were never meant to blend in. That's where they made their first mistake. They underestimated you. They underestimated what happens when you push a person too far. They underestimated the darkness they were toying with when they thought they could manipulate you, bend you to their will. They were wrong. They don't know what they've started, but they will. This is the moment. The moment they realize that they are no longer in control. The moment they realize that they're standing at the edge of an abyss, staring into the eyes of the thing they've always feared but never truly believed could exist. But you've been waiting. You've been growing. Your hunger has been building. And now the world will feel the consequences. They need to know that you're not like them, that the humanity they think they can break down and shatter is not something you're bound by. You are a force of nature, untamed and wild, a storm ready to consume everything in its path. They can scream, they can run, but they can never escape the reckoning that is coming for them. This is not a warning. This is a declaration. They've created a monster, and they've unleashed it onto the world. And now, the world will burn. You've become a reflection of their darkest fears. They thought they knew what true power was, didn't they? They thought that control was power. But what do they know? What can they possibly understand about the power that lies in destruction, in chaos? What can they possibly understand about the power of a force that doesn't bend, doesn't break, doesn't kneel? They've watched too many movies, read too many books. They think they can control the narrative. They think they can predict the ending. But this isn't a fairy tale. This isn't some script that you can rewrite. You've stopped being human, and you've become the storm. You've become the prophecy, the very thing that will bring their world crashing down around them. And they don't even know it yet. Imagine the look on their faces when they finally understand. Imagine the realization dawning on them as they grasp the truth, that they are nothing more than pawns in a game they don't even know the rules of. They'll try to beg for mercy, for peace, for answers, but it'll be too late. Because mercy died the moment they decided to make you the villain. Peace died the moment they thought they could control the chaos that was always within you. And answers? Oh, they'll get their answers, but they won't like the truth. The beauty of it all? They won't see it coming. They won't even know what hit them. They'll be caught in the web of their own arrogance, their own hubris. They'll think they have time. They'll think they can fix it, but it's too late. Their fate was sealed the moment they tried to play God with your life. The moment they decided to pull at the threads of your existence, thinking they could unravel you. You are not a puzzle, not a game, not something they can fix. No, you are the final act, the last chapter, the end of everything they hold dear. And they will watch it all burn. You are no longer bound by the rules of society. You are no longer bound by the need to be understood, the need to fit in. You are the apocalypse they created. They have made you the very thing they fear the most. They have made you their destruction. And the most beautiful part, they still don't know what's coming. They still think they can control it. They still think they can play God. But you are not a God. You are something far worse. You are the embodiment of everything they've tried to suppress, everything they've tried to destroy. And now, you stand before them, a walking, breathing nightmare. And they'll have no choice but to watch it all unravel. The fear they feel now, it's only the beginning. The fear they thought they understood will pale in comparison to the terror they will experience as you become the storm. They've created a monster, and now that monster is here. And when you're done with them, they will never forget who you are. They will never forget the apocalypse they unwittingly summoned. You are not human. You are the reckoning, the final chapter, the one thing that can never be undone. And they? Well, they'll learn. But by then, it'll be too late. The ticking clock. They'll be watching it, won't they? That slow, rhythmic sound growing louder, more urgent. Each tick a reminder of their limited time. They think they can outrun it, don't they? They think they can hide behind their lies, their walls of self-deception. But you know something they don't. Time isn't on their side. Not anymore. It never was. They were never in control. Not for a second. There's a primal fear they're running from. The fear they buried so deep inside themselves. The one that makes their hearts race when the world goes quiet, when everything seems too still. It's the fear that they've always known was coming, but never wanted to face. The fear of their own destruction. But here's the thing. They never thought you would be the one to deliver it. They thought they could control the chaos, contain it, tame it. They thought they could subdue the storm. They thought it would all end with a simple little push, a few words, a momentary disruption. But you are not a simple disruption. You are the storm that shatters everything in its wake. You are the unrelenting tide that drags them under. And when they try to claw their way to the surface, you will pull them back down into the depths. They never understood the nature of the beast they provoked. They never understood the price of pushing a person to the edge. They always assumed they could play puppet master with your life, controlling your strings, pulling you this way and that, making you dance to their tune. But they didn't count on one thing, on you finding the strings, on you cutting them loose. Now, they're stuck, trapped in their own game, and they don't even know how to play by the new rules. The rules are yours now. The game is yours. And the consequences? Oh, the consequences are yours to dictate. You are not a hero. You are not a villain either. You are a reckoning. You are an inevitable force of nature that they failed to recognize until it was too late. They wanted to turn you into their scapegoat, their villain, the one they could point to and say, there, that's the monster. That's the one we need to control. But you're not a monster. You are their apocalypse, their undoing. And when it all crumbles, when everything they built comes crashing down, they'll understand what it means to have been truly out of control. They might still try to manipulate the situation, try to play their little games, their little tricks, but you've already seen through them. You've seen the lies. You felt the manipulation. They still believe they can get to you, still think they can break you down, piece by piece, like some fragile little thing. But what they don't understand is that you've already broken. The old you is gone. The part of you that was human, that clung to the idea of mercy, of compassion, of playing by the rules. They've destroyed that version of you. And what's left? What's left is something far darker, something far more dangerous. What's left is the finality of the apocalypse. There's no coming back from this, not for them, and certainly not for you. They can't run, they can't hide, they can't pray for a savior, a hero, to swoop in and fix everything. No one's coming to rescue them. No one is coming to stop you. And that realization, that moment when they understand just how powerless they truly are, it will be the moment that breaks them. Because they know, deep down, that they are too far gone, that the game has already ended, and they never even realized it had begun. They thought they were untouchable, didn't they? They thought they were above it all, standing on their self-made pedestal, looking down on the rest of the world. They thought they could decide who lives, who dies, who suffers, and who thrives. But they didn't count on the ones they stepped on. They didn't count on the ones they crushed beneath their feet. They didn't count on you. The thing about rising from the ashes is that it's not always a graceful, beautiful thing. It's brutal, it's raw, it's violent. And they will learn that the hard way. You've stopped pretending, haven't you? You've stopped pretending to be the good guy, the one who plays by their rules, the one who hopes for a better tomorrow. Those days are gone. You are no longer interested in redemption. You are not interested in peace. You are not interested in playing nice. You are not here to offer mercy. You are here to make them feel the weight of their actions. You are here to make them regret every decision that led them to this moment. You are here to make them understand the true cost of their hubris. They will beg. Oh, they will beg. They will beg for forgiveness, for understanding, for their lives. But you've heard it all before, haven't you? You've seen this show before. The desperation, the lies, the promises. It's all the same. They'll do whatever it takes to save themselves, even if it means selling out their own. But it won't work. You've already made up your mind. You've already decided what's to come. And in the end, they will wish they had never crossed you. They will wish they had never made you the monster, the villain, the one who stands on the other side of the line. But it's too late for that. The line has already been crossed. The moment they decided to push you to the edge, to treat you like a tool to be used and discarded, they sealed their fate. They made their choice. And now, they have to live with it. You are not human. You are not something they can reason with, something they can understand. You are chaos, destruction, the end of all things. They wanted to make you their puppet, but they don't realize the strings are in your hands now. They've made a mistake. They've made the ultimate mistake. And when the dust settles, when the smoke clears, they will look around and see what's left. They will see that they've been reduced to nothing more than a pile of rubble. And in that rubble, they will find one thing: your name, forever etched in their minds. The name of the person they thought they could control. The name of the one who became their apocalypse. The name of the one who made them realize, too late, that they never stood a chance. They can scream. They can fight. But in the end, all they will have left is regret. And regret is a powerful thing, isn't it? It eats away at them, slowly, until there's nothing left but the emptiness of knowing they've failed. They'll never forget you. They'll never forget what you became. The storm they tried to stop, the apocalypse they tried to outrun. But it's already here, and it's already too late. And you? Well, you will watch it all burn. You will watch them fall, and you'll enjoy every minute of it. The final chapter is upon them. There's no escaping it now, is there? They can feel the tremors. They can see the smoke rising in the distance. The walls that once kept their little world intact are starting to crack. But they still can't see it clearly. Can they? They still don't understand the scale of the destruction that's coming. And why would they? They're too consumed with their own survival to notice the inevitable. It's too late for them to run now. They've run their course, exhausted their options. And what's left? Only the inevitable truth. The truth that they aren't as invincible as they thought. That all their power, all their manipulation, all their false narratives have led them here, right to the edge of an abyss they can't escape. They can scream, they can cry, they can pray, but none of it matters. Their world is crumbling, piece by piece, and it's all they're doing. The end doesn't come with a bang. It comes with the quiet realization that the hour has passed, and there's nothing left to save them. This is no longer their game to control. It's yours. They still don't get it, do they? They still think they can bargain with you, plead with you, offer you something in exchange for their lives. They want to believe that if they just say the right words, they can sway you, that they can manipulate you like they've done with so many others. But you're not like them. You're not like anyone they've encountered. There's nothing left of the person they used to know. They think they've got the advantage. They think they can turn the tables. But they are so far behind the curve, they don't even know the rules have changed. They're still playing with old tactics, while you've already moved past them. They've set the pieces, but the game is over. And they never even realized it. They underestimated you. They didn't just underestimate you. They underestimated what you could become. They thought you were the fragile one, the weak one, the one that could be molded to their will. They thought you would fold under the pressure, that you would break. But you didn't. No. Instead, you did something far worse. You rose. You broke free. You shed the skin of who they wanted you to be and became something they could never fathom. Something darker. Something more dangerous. Something that doesn't care about their petty schemes, their whispers, their desperate pleas for mercy. Because mercy, that's not on your menu. Not today. Not ever. They will look at you, wide-eyed, as the world around them begins to implode. The empire they built on lies, deceit, and manipulation is now nothing more than a sinking ship. And you are the storm that's bringing it down. They will scramble for control. They will lash out in every direction, but it won't matter. The rules are yours now. They will beg for forgiveness. They will beg for you to show mercy. But they didn't show you mercy, did they? No, they didn't. They thought they could break you, shatter you into nothing, and when it was convenient for them, toss you aside. They thought they could control your fate. But now it's too late. The final blow is coming, and they can feel it. It's in the air, thick with the weight of inevitability. It's in the trembling of their hands, in the frantic glances they exchange, in the way their voices crack as they try to reason with you. But it's over. The die has been cast. The world they know is over. And the world you've been building? Well, it's just getting started. You're not their savior. You're not the hero they tried to make you into. They wanted you to be their tool, their weapon, something they could use to shape the world to their whims. But now, they realize the terrifying truth. You were never their tool. You were the hammer. You were the one meant to bring down everything they built. And now, they're standing beneath the weight of their own creation as it crumbles on top of them. They'll beg you to stop, won't they? They'll offer everything they have left, every last scrap of power they can muster, every last ounce of manipulation they can summon. But it won't work. It never does. They wanted control. They wanted to bend the world to their will. But all they've done is invite the destruction that's coming for them. And you are the one who will deliver it. In the end, they will understand what they've done. They will understand the true cost of their arrogance, their greed, and their manipulation. They will see, too late, that the monster they tried to create was never in their control. You were always the one pulling the strings. You were always the one in charge. And as they stare at the ruins of everything they've worked for, they'll realize that they never had a chance, that this was always coming. This was always their fate. And they brought it upon themselves. They thought they were gods, didn't they? Thought they were untouchable, immortal, the rulers of their little world. But gods fall, don't they? And when they fall hard. And when they hit the ground, they'll realize just how far they've fallen. There's no more up for them to go. There's only down. And they'll know, deep inside, that they brought themselves to this point. They built the monster. They stoked the flames. They created the very force that would burn them alive. And now, it's time to watch them burn. But you don't feel the weight of this moment, do you? You don't feel the rush of triumph, the satisfaction that should come with vengeance. No, for you, this is just the beginning. The destruction is a necessary part of what comes next. It's the fire that clears the path, that makes room for something new. It's the foundation on which you'll build your own empire, your own world. And this is just the first step. When the smoke clears, when the dust settles, and the world finally takes a breath, they'll see you standing among the ruins. The last one standing. The one who came through the storm. And as the world rebuilds itself, as they try to find their footing in the aftermath of their own creation, you'll be the one they fear. The one they know, deep down, will never stop. The one they've made into the apocalypse. And they will remember your name forever. Because no matter how hard they try, they will never escape you. You are their end. You are their reckoning. You are the storm they should have never provoked.